Operation Domination is underway. The ultimate game plan to dominate your NFL experience. With your hosts, Dan
you gotta be confident about your Achilles when you show up.
I got it.
Chris Dowhouse,
hearing about Mr. Pointless in fantasy
and Adam LaRue. Don't hope to win. Be great and dominate.
All right. Welcome back into another edition of Operation Domination, the injury inquiry episode that we do on Thursday nights live at Fantasy Football Advice Network on social media. We'll be producing this on YouTube on the Fantasy Football Advice Network tomorrow, along on your favorite podcast app. So make sure you check it out and subscribe, and please download. We got a lot to talk about today. As always, I'm your host, Dan Mater, and unfortunately, when we're doing an episode like this, it feels like we're watching out more for tricks than we are for treats, but hopefully this show will be a treat for you and get you prepared for the weekend. But of course, we could not do this episode without our main star, without our main guest of the evening, so let's get him introduced. I do like it a lot. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the number one medical expert in all of fantasy sports, the one, the only, Dr. Brian Scott!
Thank you. I didn't hear the music coming from your side today, so I threw it in there last minute.
No, you didn't? Oh, I could hear it from my side, so that's a little strange.
Okay, I'm just telling you.
Hopefully the people out
Maybe
there heard
it. I'm just trying to, for my fans,
It was a trick. Yeah. usually tease it with the music. Oh, man. So, yeah, it's big time, man. So we had a couple of things that came up late today that we're going to have to get into in a little bit, but we do this usually position by position, so we will stay in that order. So let's just dive right into the quarterbacks right off the rip, man. So Lamar Jackson, this has been a bit tricky so far because we had Harbaugh come out and say, well, yesterday, Wednesday's practice, it was just a rest day. We listed him with a back and a knee issue. But then he didn't practice again today. And whenever a player misses 2 practices in a row, you get a little bit leery. So what's your take on the Lamar Jackson situation?
I'm not at all leery. I'm not worried so much about this. He's a veteran. He's a star player in this league. The guy is on the cusp of a possible Super Bowl championship with this organization. He has been for the last couple of years. MVP candidate. I mean, this dude is not going to miss 2 days of practice and jeopardize a weekend game for no good reason. I do see this as rest days. Doesn't sound like any of these injuries that he's listed with are serious. I expect him to play through it this weekend, and I think we'll see him.
Yeah, it's definitely good news. It's definitely my feeling, too, because he played through the entire game against the Cleveland Browns. We really didn't hear anything about this, so I'm with you. I think this is just giving Lamar Jackson extra rest than anything else. If he was to miss, Josh Johnson is the second-string quarterback. I wouldn't be so concerned about Derrick Henry, but maybe the pass catchers who are already taking a little bit of a dip with the presence now of newly acquired Deontay Johnson. Maybe they take an extra dip more. So we'd keep an eye on it for like Zay Flowers' sake, and maybe Mark Andrews, who's finally been surging as of late. We'd have to take a look at that. But our feeling is Lamar Jackson might be able to play. How about this guy? I mean, Jordan Love, groin injury, didn't look great as far as the game goes. Thought he might miss a few weeks, and then all of a sudden he was back at practice today, at least in a limited capacity. So what's your take on Jordan Love?
Yeah, so return to practice during the media portion today, and he's probably going to carry a questionable tag, the weekend with this groin injury. The team, however, is optimistic that he'll be ready to go. We'll have to see what he does on Friday and prior to the game. Assuming he doesn't have any setbacks tomorrow and he's feeling good pregame on Sunday, I think we'll see him.
Also good news, because he's going to get a match against Detroit. So not only is it a big rivalry matchup, but points can be scored in this game. You can throw the ball in Detroit. He plays a lot of man coverage. Christian Watson, somebody I listed out yesterday's episode during our Week 9 preview. Make sure you go back and check that out in your favorite podcast app or on the Fantasy Football Advice Network YouTube channel. Give it a subscribe if you haven't done so. But what I laid out for him is that Christian Watson looks like he's getting healthier, and I can tell that by the playing time. He played more than double the amount of snaps and more than double the amount of routes of Dontavian Wicks, looking like he's retaking that wide receiver 2 role to Romeo Doubs on the outside. We know that Jaden Reed is going to command targets in the slot, but all these guys take a huge dip if it's going to be Jordan Love, because when we saw Malik Willis out there, they weren't really willing to throw the ball a ton. It was all the Josh Jacobs show. So Love's out there. You can play your Packers pass catchers. I mean, to some people, they would say at your own peril. But in this matchup here, I think you'd play him at value as long as Jordan Love's able to go. And Love himself, even with the injury, I do have him as a top 12 quarterback in your starting lineups this week. What about Drake May? He gets a concussion. The trend has been players don't typically play the following week, but he seems like he might be progressing through this pretty well.
Yeah, he was limited for the second straight day in practice, but he actually progressed with the amount of activity that he was able to get through, which is optimistic when you're talking about concussions and returning from the concussion protocol. So that's a positive sign. He's moving in the right direction. Still plenty of time where he could get cleared for Sunday's competition.
Let's hope that happens too, because it's taking on a tough Tennessee defense, and the Patriots have enough offensive woes as it is. But we've seen when Drake May's in there, they can actually produce. Pop Douglas becomes a low-end wide receiver 3, especially in PPR leagues, maybe a high-end wide receiver 4 at half point, because he's been a go-to option down the field. And then Ramondre Stevenson, who's been looking healthier because he got 20 snaps last week. He had a 55-12 discrepancy in snap count. 20 carries, and then a 55-12 snap count discrepancy between him and Antonio Gibson. When you go up against a good defense like this, you want to be able to have your best foot forward. If you're counting on guys like Ramondre or maybe Demario Douglas as a lower end flex play, depending upon how you're looking at this. And with the Patriots, I want to say this. It's not so much about the matchup that they face defensively for guys like Ramondre and everything. It's the game script. Because Antonio Gibson works in so much on the passing game, because they've shown that they're willing to go to JaMychal Hasty. I don't know why. One of the best attributes of Ramondre Stevenson is his pass catching ability, but they haven't allowed him to play that role. It's more about making sure you're staying in a neutral, positive game script. They should be able to do that to some extent with an inept Tennessee offense. So you want Drake May out there to maximize that, and Ramondre becomes a RB24 if Drake May can still play. This guy might be on the way back, Derek Carr.
So funny thing is, when I was doing some of my research with Derek, the head coach, Dennis Allen's been very optimistic. He thinks Carr's going to be able to return. It doesn't sound like pain is the issue, however. It sounds like he's got some limited mobility in and around his trunk from the oblique injury that he was dealing with. And then Carr was quoted in the media and really was quoted as like tempering expectations upon his return, stating that he basically is not going to solve all the Saints' problems by returning back. So that makes you wonder whether or not he's actually ready or wants to come back just yet, because he doesn't sound like he's at 100%. And it sounds like he's really struggling to kind of get that trunk rotation to make high velocity, deep throws down the field during practice here. So I'm kind of a little bit on the fence after hearing him discuss that with the media. However, the team seems to be optimistic that he's going to be ready. So this could, again, come down to a game time decision depending on how he does Friday and Sunday pregame.
We'll have to see. It seemed like, starting off the week, it seemed like it was Derek Carr was definitely coming back this week. We'll see if that actually happens or not. I trend towards it will be based on some of the reporting. If he doesn't go, I think at this point, we expected to be Jake Haener after what we saw last week. He came in, played much better, much more consistently than Spencer Rattler. And in a tough matchup with the Saints there, Chris Olave still had a huge game with Jake Haener coming into the ball game. So either way, whether it's Derek Carr or Jake Haener, I love Chris Olave this week against Carolina Panthers. Actually got him in my top 10 as he becomes the dominant target share earner with the wide receivers, especially Rashid Shaheed being out as well. All right, so with that, we move on to the running backs. Tyrone Tracy, who had a hell of a game against a great run defense of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He got a concussion at the end of this thing. But maybe there's some positive news on him too.
Well, first of all, as a Giant fan, it's great to see. This dude's only been playing running back for like 2 years, too, which is pretty amazing. He is like a transition wide receiver, which is pretty remarkable. He was limited on Thursday. He was wearing a red non-contact jersey, which is fine. That's what you would expect to see. But again, he's increasing his workload each practice, so he's making progress in his concussion protocol. They're hopeful that he'll be cleared sometime before Sunday, and hopefully he is, and we should see him.
Yeah, if he's out there, he's locked into your line, especially against this Washington Commander defense has been bad against the run. If he's out, and it is Devin Singletary, I think Singletary does become a flex RB3 worthy option based on volume. But we really just, even early in the season when it was Singletary's job, we weren't seeing much out of him. So I would be super eager to play him, but running backs, volume, good matchups, he's got to at least be a flex play depending upon what your options would be. But hopefully we do see Tyrone Tracy be able to take the field. Travis Etienne, I mean, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like he may be on his way back. But what do you think?
Okay, so I read some of the reports, and he was quoted in a lot of them and gave a lot of information. And these are kind of some red flags that I look for when athletes are commenting to the media. Apparently, he's been speaking with a lot of other players who've dealt with this injury before. This is the first time he's dealt with this injury, and it sounds like he's really kind of slowing down and pumping the brakes a little bit on his return. Personally, I'm not so sure the medical team and the organization is doing that. I think this is him, because he's basically saying, like, until I feel like I've got my explosiveness back, I'm not so sure that I'm ready or going to be coming back. So it sounds like he doesn't want to put himself at risk, and he's kind of taking things slow. And again, until I see him have a full practice session or at least one or two under their belt, I'm a little hesitant in giving any type of green light for their return. And he's still in that situation. He's been limited most of the time during practices recently, unless he came back today, which I don't think he did. Could be another week.
Yeah, it's a little tricky going on with the Travis Etienne because Doug Peterson keeps saying hey, he's going to be good to go. And then all of a sudden it kind of backtracks as we get later into the week. Obviously, you're firing up Tank Bigsby if he can't go. Obviously, Dearness Johnson takes over the passing down role if he can't go. But there's also something else at play here. The trade deadline comes up next Tuesday. Travis Etienne's a name that has been getting floated out there because of what's been going on with Tank Bigsby, and also because, well, frankly, the Jacksonville Jaguars are not going to make the playoffs now. They're sitting at 2-6 and may be sellers anyway, and may look to move off of him and see what they can get back in return. So if you have Travis Etienne, I'm still hanging tight, especially if you have that IR spot, because I would be intrigued if he says, you know, what if he winds up at a team like Dallas or something along those lines. His prospects could greatly improve if something were to change here in the next week. So I'm still holding on to Travis Etienne and seeing whether he comes back this week or not. Tajay Spears, another guy where the team started off very positive at the beginning of the week, but then this practice week so far hasn't been that great.
Yeah, returned to limited action yesterday during practice. The organization is optimistic, and I think given another situation which popped up, which is that Tony Pollard missed Wednesday's practice with the foot injury, this could accelerate Spears' return to the lineup this weekend.
The problem is, though, Spears didn't practice today. So he's limited yesterday, doesn't practice today. That's where it comes a little kind of shaky. If you're coming back from a hamstring.
I think that was an intentional thing, though, to do to see how he responded to yesterday's practice, and at least that's what I read in some reports. So it didn't sound like this was unexpected. This was part of the plan, and I think they're going to test it out again tomorrow and see.
The guy has no ACLs. We can't have him with no hamstrings either. But if Tajay Spears is going to be out there, he becomes a low-end flex play too, especially this match against the Patriots. We know the Tennessee Titans, the only thing they have is their backfield. Because I know Calvin Ridley went off last week, and that was great and dandy. And Calvin Ridley's a wide receiver through for me in this part too. But what's consistently the very little offense they have had through this season has been Tony Pollard. And before Tajay Spears got this hamstring, was starting to get worked in a little bit more too and becoming a flex option. So we're waiting to see that. Now we move to the wide receivers. And this just came down probably an hour before we got onto the show. And there's still a lot of conflicting information coming through on reports. But Puka Nacua apparently aggravated a knee injury at practice today. Now, there's some reporters saying that it's not the same knee. Ian Rappaport said a team official source told him it was the same knee. So it gets a little bit murky there. Brian, what are just your thoughts here? Because we don't have a ton of information here on Puka.
Dan, this is what drives me nuts with the media reporting when it comes to injuries, because they're not talking with experts. They're dealing with team officials, whatever that means. I don't know, but it drives me up a wall, and it makes me try and get my job done. It just drives me insane. Sorry, I lost my cool there. I apologize. But, yeah, we don't know if it's the same knee. We can assume it is because – I mean, unless they were doing something crazy at practice or something freak happened, I don't know how you injure your other knee. So, you know, We don't know yet. We'll see what happens tomorrow.
Well, I do have this developing, and let me just, because this just came down from The Athletic. There's a beat reporter reporting that, according to team officials and Nacua, that this is the same right knee injury that Nacua injured earlier this year.
And look, that's what I would assume. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I swear that one of the injuries he was dealing with in years past, whether it last year or the year before, I forget, was some kind of similar, the way it kind of played out, where he was doing well, making a return, and then had a setback in practice. So, this doesn't seem like it's out of the realm of possibility for him. I don't know. Maybe he just practices really hard and goes full out, all intense. I'm not so sure. As a young player in the league and trying to make his mark and coming off some great seasons, sometimes you can do that, and that might not always be the smartest thing to do as you get further into the season. You got to temper. I'm not saying they should slack off or downplay anything, but you also have to play smart, knowing that this is a much longer season than years ago. You don't have as much practice time as you did. You got to use your time wisely. You got to keep yourself healthy. So hopefully it's nothing major. We'll have to see what happens tomorrow, because that'll be telling about what happens over the weekend.
That will be telling. And look, there's other wide receiver injuries the Rams are dealing with, and I think this became relevant now that we know that Puka is questionable to miss the Sunday, because Jordan Whittington was starting to really come on. Like, he was starting to play a major role in the absence of Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nacua starting to make his mark, was getting ahead of Tyler Johnson and Tutu Atwell and Demarcus Robinson there right before he hurt his shoulder. So what do we have on him right now?
Jordan Whittington was limited in practice today. However, when you consider that it's more than he practiced all last week and then sat out Thursday Night Football, and he got some extra rest in, that's encouraging. So we'll see what he does tomorrow, but it could be a game-time decision.
Yeah, I think at this point, if you're adding Jordan Whittington, you're doing it as a flyer waiver, that maybe if Puka did re-aggravate this injury, it might not just be a one-week injury, if you're thinking of it that way. I'm not looking to play Jordan Whittington this week. The only receiver, not named Cooper Kupp, obviously, that I take interest in now is Tutu Atwell. I know Demarcus Robinson was the one who wound up with 2 touchdowns a week ago, and that was with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua on the field. But Tutu's been playing a very specific role, especially when one of these guys or both of them have been out. And that's been the big play threat wide receiver. So I think it becomes a flyer that you could take as a wide receiver 4 if you're looking for some pop in your lineup at the flex position. We go to Stefon Diggs, and we all know he's not going to play this week. What do you think this is for not just maybe next year, but the rest of his career? Because he's an older player now.
Yeah, 30 years old, wide receiver position, one of those skilled position players, coming off an ACL next year, assuming he's ready to go in that 9 to 12-month window. He's going to miss time at the beginning of the season, no doubt. You have to really kind of put that all into context. It can take about 24 months for players to really be as close to fully recovered and as back to their pre-injury levels as they're ever going to be. So even next season, when he comes back, we may not see the Stefon Diggs of old. It may take an additional year. Then he's, hovering around 32 years old. So it really is potentially a career-altering injury at the very least. How much it affects him, only time will tell. But not a good injury to have at this stage of your career, unfortunately.
Well, especially with his contract situation, too. Let's not forget this was meant to be a one-year rental trade that the Houston Texans did to kind of get themselves, if not over the hump, at least in position with the elite of the AFC. And now he's going to be dealing with this. We don't even know what team he's going to be on. This becomes real shaky, real fast for Stefon Diggs moving forward. Obviously, Houston is playing tonight because we are recording this on Thursday night, and Tank Dell is the last man left standing. When we get an update on Nico Collins, we'll bring him back to the show. DK Metcalf is still dealing with his knee issue. Started off the week some optimism, but I don't think he practiced again today.
I know he didn't practice yesterday, so that's 2 days in a row. Despite him not practicing yesterday, the team was still optimistic that if he gets some practice time in at all this week, he might be ready to go on Sunday. This guy's a freak athletically. They're saying it was a mild MCL sprain. I don't think he's going to need much time to prepare. With a mild MCL sprain, it is realistic to be back within 2 weeks. There is enough time there to recover and get yourself game ready, especially him. So we'll see what he does tomorrow. Could be another questionable tag heading into the weekend. Might be a game time decision, but I think we should have an answer more definitively by tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely going to be watching this for the Friday. But I think it's interesting that when today started, Mike McDonald came out and made comments saying that he expected DK Metcalf to be limited today, and then he wasn't listed as being practicing at all. So always a little bit concerning when you see that. All right, Brian Thomas, this is another example of your frustrating reporting, because when this first broke, this was 2 to 4 week injury, and now it's, he's day-to-day, and now he's back at practice. So what do you got on Brian Thomas?
Well, they're calling it a chest injury. I don't even know what chest injury would fall into that time frame for a recovery. So,
well, Alan Lazard had a chest injury, and all of a sudden he's on the IR. So this was weird.
Dan, no, and it drives me crazy. He had a non-contact red jersey on. Gabe Davis and Tank Bigsby both joined him in limited action today. So maybe maybe he was lonely and they wanted to give him some company. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, everybody.
Yeah, it's really, really been vague on the details of the Brian Thomas of it all. Look, if he plays, you got to play him against the Philadelphia Eagles. He's been a top 24 wide receiver. There's no way he's not going to be in your lineup. If he doesn't go, all right, it does sound like Gabe Davis, who's dealing with a bit of a shoulder issue himself, is going to be out there playing. But the only guy I would have interest in, especially with the next guy we're about to talk about soon missing the rest of the season, is Evan Ingram, because now he might be in line, even if Brian Thomas is out there, he might be in line for a very healthy target share, and he needs to be locked into your lineups. But speaking of Christian Kirk, gets the collarbone fracture. So what do you got on this one?
Yeah, it sucks. This is one of those injuries where he's going to require surgery. They're saying season ending. And the reason for that is it's going to be at least 6 to 8 weeks before that thing is even healed with surgery too. And then there's going to be some rehab involved. Not a common injury to see in football. I mean, usually the shoulder pads do a good job protecting you from this. So kind of freak how it happened. Obviously, he landed awkwardly, probably on his elbow, which the force can cause a clavicle fracture rather than a direct contact type injury. So, the good news is long-term, this is not going to be an issue for him. He'll heal just fine, but, it definitely puts a wrinkle into the rest of this season. And then, like I said, with all the other injuries going on around the leagues and with his team too, it's just another blow to that team.
Yeah, I know, just to cap off the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not that I would play this player even if he was active, even with the added target share potentially, but Gabe Davis, shoulder issue.
Yeah, I mean, they're not really giving much detail about it, but I think we'll see him. He was limited, probably just not doing any contact drills, but doesn't sound like it was anything serious for Gabe Davis. I think now with Christian Kirk out, I don't see how they can sit him too.
Yeah, absolutely. So T. Higgins, he's dealing with the quad issue, and it really showed on the field that T. Higgins was missing last week, especially for Joe Burrow's fantasy value here. So what do we got on T. Higgins and his quad?
Well, it's not looking good. Apparently, he missed a second day of practice today, but was seen on the field doing mostly rehab work and no real football activities, which with a quad injury, you definitely got to temper your expectations because while it is a strong muscle, it can recover fairly quickly. It doesn't take much to injure this muscle again. And if you cause a significant injury to the quad, then you're really talking about a lengthy time missed. So I'm assuming they're going to take it slow. So I don't think we're going to see him ready. We'll see if he is able to advance his practice session tomorrow. But after today, it's not looking very optimistic.
Yeah, so, I mean, fire Jamar Chase. We know the target share goes through the roof for his sake. And I do still think against the Raiders this particular week that Joe Burrow is still a top 10 play. But, yeah, you really like his upside a lot more if T. Higgins is able to get out there. But this has been the NMO for T. Higgins. He misses games throughout years for different injuries. Soft tissue seems to always be the issue here. Adam Thielen. So Deontay Johnson gets traded away. We are looking at guys like Jalen Coker and Xavier Legette, and then Adam Thielen might be on his way back. So what do you got here?
Yeah, so I mean, with the trade of Deontay Johnson, maybe that's why they were so willing to quickly let him go, because maybe Thielen is coming back. Now, he got injured week 3 with this hamstring. He's put on IR. So now don't forget, it's not weeks, it's games. So you figure week 4, 5, 6, 7. And then did they have a bye? They might have had a bye in there somewhere. If they did, you can extend that out another week before he enters the 21-day window. So that means that they either have 2 weeks or 1 week to get him back onto the active roster. So he was limited in practice for the second time this week. And we'll see. I mean, this is one of those things until you really can test it out. And it's going to happen within that 21-day window, not before. You really don't know what you got. And Thielen, again, another older player, skilled position, wide receiver. Hesitant to say he'll be back this week. But if he's trending in the right direction, if he keeps advancing his practice sessions this week, maybe at the earliest we'll see him back next week.
Yes, Panthers bye, by the way, just so everybody knows, is week 11.
Okay.
I know there was a stretch last year with Bryce Young where Adam Thielen was very, very good because he was getting all this volume in the world. That is not going to happen this time around. First of all, Bryce Young's playing a much worse version of himself than he was even last year anyway. But besides all of that, we have seen guys like Jalen Coker get involved. We have seen them trying to get their first-round draft pick, Xavier, to get going. So he's not going to be in line for that same target share even without Deontay Johnson. Look, the fact is, outside of Chuba Hubbard, and even then I'm playing him as a low-end RB2, high-end RB3, I don't want any shares of this Carolina Panther team. And even Chuba Hubbard long-term, I mean, Jonathan Brooks has been practicing in full, and we're not going to talk about today because we're not really relevant for fantasy purposes yet. But he could be on his way back soon, and then that could mess that all up because who knows what the Panthers are going to do at this point. They're just throwing wet pepper towels against the door and hoping something sticks. So I just don't want anything to do with the Carolina Panthers if I can help it. And I can't believe we're talking about this player, but it became relevant for long enough that we kind of had to throw him in here. But Bub Means, he gets a high ankle sprain.
Love the name, by the way. Love the name. He has not practiced this week with this high ankle sprain, which is not surprising. We kind of know how these things go. It can take a while. And it wouldn't be surprising if he does not suit up this weekend, given that he's got a high ankle sprain. I've stated this before. Those can take at least sometimes 4 weeks, depending on the severity. Until we see him get out there in at least a limited fashion, I'd be shocked if he plays. This is not looking good for the near future here. Even with a mild high ankle sprain, which I've said before, there are not many mild high ankle sprains. It's usually more the moderate degree, which usually spells at least a few weeks.
Yeah, and what's big about this, believe it or not, is because that's just another receiver down. I mean, they're at the point they might actually have to play Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who they signed a few weeks ago here from the Bills. That's how bad it is for the Saints. But it does go to say more targets for Chris Olave, more targets for Alvin Kamara, which is ultimately what we care about anyway, no matter who the quarterback is. So it does play to that point I made earlier of Olave being a top 10 receiver for me. Okay, so this other one is kind of a personal inquiry too. But David Njoku popped up today. Now, he practiced in full yesterday. Wasn't on the injury report at all. And then all of a sudden didn't practice today because of an ankle issue. And no one can really seem to figure out, was it just because of his rest? Because sometimes teams do that on a Thursday. Or did he actually aggravate something and we're just finding out about it now? What's your thoughts on this?
All right, so speaking of high ankle sprains, David Njoku was kind of one of these classic high ankle sprains. They thought it was mild. They said it was going to be a few weeks. It turned out to be a lot longer, which is what I always say. So we kind of nailed that one right at the beginning. If you follow the show, if you watch my injury updates on various podcasts and stuff, apparently some of the reports I read said that it was a re-aggravation of this same ankle that he did earlier in the season. It happened during practice. He missed 3 games because of it, which was actually quite a small amount of time given the injury. And by the way, that was on a non-called hip drop tackle. And with high ankle sprains, it's concerning when you see this type of thing happen where they come back, they're practicing, they've made it back to game time participation, and then all of a sudden they have a setback, because that could mean that this thing never really truly fully healed. And then now you're starting to look at the possibility, is this something surgical? And could this spell an IR trip and potential season-ending surgery? So certainly something worth keeping an eye on. Not exactly sure how severe it is, if it's the same ankle, definitively here, but we can assume it is based on some of the reports that are out there.
Yeah, so tomorrow's going to be a big day. Friday's going to tell us. If he comes out and practices at all, then I think he's going to be good to go as far as Sunday is concerned. But if he comes out and he's a DNP, you're probably going to have to, unfortunately, look for another option, because he's finally gotten going now. Jameis Winston, the passing offense, he's got 2 touchdowns the last 2 games. It's been fantastic for him. If he can't go, then it's going to be more targets sprinkled amongst Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman. You can even throw Jerry Jeudy in there to some degree. If it doesn't help you with the tight end situation, though, keep your eyes out for some sleepers. Keep your eyes out for my rankings on Fantasy Football Advice Network. I'll have some sleeper there for you, some streaming options that you guys can check out. Speaking of, make sure to check out Operation Domination on your favorite podcast app and give us a subscription when you go to Fantasy Football Advice Network on YouTube. Guys, we'll be back next week on Wednesday at 9:30. Before we get out of here, Brian, what do you got coming up, man? What do you want people to check out?
Well, I got a lot coming up. Got something special happening in a few weeks, which I'll allude to next week, so that you guys can check that out, but I'll keep it a little bit under wraps. Got the podcast. We'll be releasing some episodes each month here as we move along throughout the season. You can find me on That Sports Podcast Network, doing TSS Fantasy each Friday and Sunday morning, early mornings for last-minute injury updates as well. And then, of course, you can tune into theinjuredlist.com, where we've got some articles up in the podcast and links to everything as well. So come check it out.
Absolutely. Love having you on, and we'll see you guys next week.
Hey there, I want to thank you for watching Operation Domination today. And if you're enjoying the show, there are some ways you can help support us. You can go to podchaser.com/Operation Domination and leave us a 5-star review. And you can do this on any podcast platform or on our YouTube page when you go to @FF Advice Network. This completely helps out the show be able to grow, and also leave us comments to let us know how we can curtail the show to you, because you are the most important member of the show. So again, go to podchaser.com/Operation Domination to leave a 5-star review and leave a comment wherever you listen or watch the show, and we'll help better serve you.